Now, owning a dog is good for your health and could help prevent heart attacks, according to new research from Sweden. The study found that people who live alone actually benefit the most, with a four-legged friend lowering the risk of dying from cardiovascular disease by 36%.
Which means Petrie Hosken will live forever with your dog,
Yeah,
won't you?
absolutely.
Have you got a dog, Ashok?
I do have a dog. It's a lovely fox terrier.
Well, there you go, you see. So they're going to live forever.
Yeah.
We haven't got dogs.
No.
So we're
You've got a
doomed.
cat, you're fine.
I've got a cat. It'll keep me going.
People with cats.
Your cat would eat you.
What, when I'm dead? Yeah, probably. Well, that's fine. I don't mind. It's all recycling, isn't it?
Cheery thought.
As you can see, broadcaster Petrie Hosken and economist and academic Ashok Kumar here. Good morning. Nice to see you both. Let's kick off, Ashok, with the eye this morning. Looking at Robert Mugabe, it says there's no way back for him.
Well, I mean, this is a bit more clear than what was happening for the last few days. Obviously, it was very unclear. People were calling it a coup. It was a de facto coup. The reason why they didn't call it a coup is because once you call it a coup, it would compel the nations around in the southern regions, but also across Africa, to act, right?
Yeah.
And so now what we're seeing is this power struggle between Emmerson Mnangagwa and Mugabe and Mugabe's wife, Grace Mugabe, coming to a sharp end, and they're saying now, making it quite clear that he's not going to come back.
But we have to be very careful here. There are a lot of people celebrating that Mugabe has gone. He's still looking like he's trying to desperately hold on to the bit of power that he might have left. But we've always got to be careful about who comes next.
Yeah.
And so this may not do for Zimbabwe what we want it to do.
Morgan Tsvangirai said about. I mean, obviously he was the leader of the MDC. The Movement for Democratic Change. Now, is this going to open up an opportunity for proper democracy and for the
Hopefully.
MDC?
I mean, I think that's probably unlikely. I mean, Emmerson Mnangagwa was hand in glove with Mugabe for 40 years. He was sort of the most, we would say, the sort of authoritarian wing of an already quite problematic regime. There's no indication, really, that this would open up. Maybe in the confusion, there's a possibility that other opportunities open up, but Emmerson Mnangagwa doesn't bode well for potential democratic entry.
And that's the point, isn't it? Because he was working with Mugabe for so long. He was seen as the strong arm of Mugabe. He totally, fully bought into that. So we might just get worse than we've had before. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, well, we shall. Obviously, we've got people out there, and Alex Rossi and David Bones, keeping a very close eye on that.
Interesting times.
To the Telegraph, looking at our very famous EU rebate.
Yes, in 1984, Margaret Thatcher was hailed a bit of a hero for getting this rebate, £5 billion pounds a year returned to us for the money that we pay in. Now the EU is saying we're thinking of not giving you your rebate for 2018, so that would add on to the money presumably that they want us to pay to leave.
Could they do that?
Well, they can do that, of course they can. They've got it. They don't need to give it back to us. I think that this is a threat for Margaret Thatcher. It's Freudian slip there. Theresa May to come up on her offer, which they see as paltry. They want somewhere in the region of 60, 70 billion for us to buy out. She's offering 20, which is about 17 billion pounds, and they're saying no. So if you don't give us more, we'll take this off you. But of course they need our money. We're one of the biggest contributors to the EU, and they are worried about us not being there to pay in to the club. Also, they want to make us look bad.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that, yes, they do need the money. I don't deny that. But it's a question of a nominal question versus an existential question. What I mean by that is, if you're the EU, you have a number of different countries and campaigns and parties pushing to replicate what Britain did, in terms of exiting, and those campaigns are building steam. And what you want to do is, like we were saying earlier, is like a gang. You know, the person that leaves, you want to make a sort of a lesson of them. And so for Britain, for the EU, it's probably of primary importance to try and hurt the British economy as much as possible. I mean, that's and so for them to make the threat is about adding more layers to
But
the
isn't
bargaining
that,
chip.
Isn't that a sort of retrograde argument for them in the sense of looking forward past Brexit? And obviously there needs to be a strong economy to still contribute in terms of exports and imports and all that business.
What they want more is £350 million a week. That's what they want more, and they're not going to get it. And they keep the reason I think Ashok is absolutely right on this is because we keep hearing from Brussels, look, you don't really have to go. You can change your mind if you want to. And each step, I think we might start hearing that get louder, is, look, I know this is looking painful right now, but you don't really have to leave. You can change your mind.
Oh, well, interesting. Let's have a look at this in the Mail. Jeremy Corbyn wants votes at 16.
Yeah, so the Mail's suggesting that it's a cynical ploy to get younger people who will probably vote for Corbyn over whoever his opponent is. But I think the arguments have been sort of long-standing. If you're 16 and you can join the army and pay taxes and get married, then why can't you vote? And so while some people might see it as a cynical ploy, this campaign sort of predates that by quite a number of years.
There have been so many attempts, though, haven't there, to try and lower the voting age, even in recent years, and it's never been successful.
Well, they did it in the Scottish referendum, remember?
But they haven't decided to change it beyond that in any future elections.
No, and
I
of course
wonder if there's the concern that amongst the general population anyway, certainly older people think that 16-years-olds aren't the right age.
Again, they did it in the Scottish referendum because they thought more young people would...
Ploy,
but this is why it's been called a cynical ploy by Labour, because naturally 16-year-olds are probably more socialist, they're more, they have more idealistic, absolutely. So they're seeing this as a potential vote, but it's not helped by people. I think it was Diane Abbott that said, well, they can go to war. Well, of course they can't go to war at 16. They don't go. They join the army at 16, but they don't go to war. They don't go to the front line. So this is a bit of a muddle, and it would be seen to favour Labour if the votes were brought down. So the arguments are kind of, basically, they're more idealistic and more likely to vote in a socialist way.
Yeah.
But if they don't teach children politics in school properly, then they're not fit to vote at 16, because they don't know anything.
I mean, there are plenty of people who are elderly, who may have dementia, who are still eligible to vote, and they're not disenfranchised. So why should somebody who's able to work and completely cognitively there be denied that?
Also, if we're encouraging older people to vote because they might vote one political way or another, how is that any less cynical, right?
That's true. That's true.
And also, if you want younger people to be more politically educated, the best way to do that is to give them some agency in that, right?
Well, look, your thoughts on that, very welcome this one. Let us know what you think at Sky Stephen, at Sunrise Isabel. We're going to take a break. Back in a moment.
What are we doing next?
Debates in the break.
I know. I just want to reflect on this in the Telegraph again, Petrie, just because I think it's a lovely story about...
It is a lovely story, but I think we already knew this, didn't we? They're saying that owning a dog will help you live longer. And one of the reasons is that you have to go out for a walk when you've got a dog.
I think that's probably it.
But it doesn't explain why living alone, people who live alone benefit the most.
Yes, it does, completely and utterly.
Because you share the walking, maybe.
When you go out for a walk, there's communities of dog walkers. You always talk to people. It's impossible in my area to go for a walk with your dog and not stop and talk to other dog owners.
But why is that different if you're in a couple than if you're living alone?
Well, I suppose that you're the one person that's going out. You're the one that gets known to the locals.
Oh, that's a lovely face.
It's such a pretty face. So I think this is a no-brainer. This is absolutely a no-brainer. And I'm just looking at there's a percentage here. I don't know why a particular type of dog.
Maybe if it's more excitable, you're running around, you know what I mean?
That's it.
I'd like to see the statistics on cats, right?
You don't go out for a walk with your
It's conceivable that people with cats live, not as long lives because they're sort of curmudgeonly staying at home with their cats.
Yeah,
I don't know why curmudgeonly.
Curmudgeonly.
Are you saying that deliberately because you're a cat?
I didn't say that. I wasn't pointing at you and saying curmudgeonly.
I am.
It's conceivable that, when we get a certain imagery comes to mind, you think cat person. You're not like, oh, that person's exciting running out.
Ashok, this is taking a turn.
No, wait, you know what I mean? So it's conceivable. You know what I'm saying?
No, I do not.
Where's dogs running around, walking?
Going out, well, being sociable. You're antisocial.
Us cat people are very, very dynamic, I'll have you know.
And antisocial.
Not curmudgeonly.
I'm not curmudgeonly. How dare you?
That's a term of endearment.
Let's quickly have a look at this, the political correctness.
So yes, political correctness, madness. Well, I mean, the story's quite funny because it's some of the things the person identifies. Yes, okay, look, there's no undeniably there's a lot more sensitivity going on around right now. But some of the stuff is just like, you're just not being a very nice person, right? Like he's like, I can't call people fat anymore. It's like, that was never really
nice.
Cool. Yeah, like you can still call people fat. It's not illegal to do that. But you're just you're kind of a horrible person if you do. It's got nothing to do with the changing times. I can't call people fat. So anyways, this is, I just think this is a curmudgeonly person who's got probably lots of cats in his house. Boom, I'm here all week.
Can I just say, Ashok, you will get there's a lot of cat lovers on Twitter.
Tweet me.
You'll be getting a lot of.
You'll be
getting a lot of hassle this morning. Yeah. All I can say, cat lovers. He's quite nice, really. Yeah. Once you get to know him, but I might change my mind if he doesn't improve next hour. We'll see you then. Let's get a quick check on the sports headlines.
Now, owning a dog's good for your health, apparently, and it could help prevent heart attacks. That's according to new research from Sweden. The study found that people who live alone benefit the most, with a four-legged friend lowering the risk of dying from cardiovascular disease by 36%.
Now, I wish I could find the tweet. Someone tweeted me to say, that's absolute nonsense. I've got 3 dogs and I've just had 2 heart attacks this year.
Well, but
I think that might be just unfortunate. To be fair.
Yeah,
it's good.
I mean, it's reducing your chances by 36%, but not 100%.
No. Very, very true. Let's look at the papers for you now with broadcaster Petrie Hosken and economist and academic Ashok Kumar. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you both. Let's kick straight off with The Guardian. Petrie. Parents could lose children.
Yeah, no, this is Kafkas are looking at this. They're the people who sort of get involved when there's a divorce and, absent dads and everything. And there's a lot of dads actually in this report say they're really happy about this. Basically, when there's a divorce, it gets bitter. And you might get the children staying with one parent or the other, usually the mother, who may then start to turn those children against their father by calling him names and saying he's a no good dad and he's a horrible person. And so what they're suggesting here is that they would remove the children from the parent who is alienating the other parent, and in some cases put them into care.
Is that good for the I thought everyone was meant to work in the benefit of the child.
That's the question here. How does that really benefit the child? But in Mexico and Brazil, it is a criminal offence to alienate the other parent. And of course, there's a lot of dads who are the ones that are outside of the family home when a divorce happens are saying, look, this is a really good idea. And I've just been speaking to somebody actually who agreed with this, and she said herself that as a mum, when she divorced, she wished that this had been in place because she was horrible. She herself was alienating her children from their father.
I mean, there's a big campaign, isn't there, by the Times, interestingly. It was on the front of their newspapers yesterday to try and change divorce laws because they say it actually provokes bitterness because you have to come up with sometimes exaggerated reason of infidelity or, incompatibility, which then further down the road creates this bitterness that the children often pick up on. If they change those laws, maybe then this wouldn't be necessary, but nobody wants to see children taken away from any parent and put into care.
But they could, but permanently removed from those parents at some stage.
The question then becomes, it's totally unrealistic. You've just been with someone, you have children together, you got a mortgage together. The idea that somehow some of that won't be transferred on socially onto the children is unrealistic. Obviously, ideally, you don't want that to happen, but to sort of micromanage it just seems totally bizarre.
But it seems very extreme. But they are trialling this now, and by next year, this could come into force.
I just think it adds more. I think it puts more pressure on people going through an already very stressful situation. I think
and on the children to remove the children from the parent.
Dreadful idea.
Well, I mean, family courts, the absolute
secrecy.
Well, no, but no. I think the whole thing that determines what happens in the family court is the benefit of the child.
But again, there's always been questions over the secrecy and the power that those courts hold. There should never be secret courts anywhere.
Do you not think?
No. There's no justice in secret courts.
I agree.
Oh, well, your thoughts on that? Very welcome. At Sky Stephen, at Sunrise Isabel. To the Telegraph, Ashok, Oxford University students are going to have to take a racism awareness course.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, obviously, when you read something like this, you're like, snowflakes at Oxford are demanding this. As someone who went to Oxford, who taught at Oxford, I have to say, I've never been to a place where it feels like people are like, sort of kind of have just been frozen in time. And then you meet people and you're like, can you actually have this opinion? No one's saying vulgarly racist things to your face, but for example, just an example, the first week I got there, my grandparents were imprisoned fighting British colonialism in India, like a lot of people's parents and grandparents who come from the global south. And to come there and actually have to have these really retrograde arguments about like the glory of the empire, that's a form of like, it's quite astonishing and it is alienating. And I didn't regret going there, but I didn't want to spend much time there. And I'm not alone in that. And maybe, is this the solution to it? I don't know, but I'm actually happy to see that Oxford is trying to take, after much pressure, to take steps to
It questions then, doesn't it, the idea of this elitism and this element of society that is not mixing with and understanding how Britain is actually made up these days.
I mean, I don't know if it does, because my interactions outside, so in other places, I teach at Birkbeck, I went to Queen Mary, I've taught there, my interactions there aren't like this. There's a much more diverse kind of body of opinions outside of the sort of creamy layer of the society. You go to the creamiest layers of society, it's very retrograde, it's very harkening back, because they were the beneficiaries, many of them, or the descendants of beneficiaries of empire. Whereas working class people in this country, yes, they benefited in various different ways, but there's a much more diverse opinion out there, outside of these institutions. I think there's an exceptionalism in the way that people operate and understand their own history in places like Oxford and Cambridge. That's been my sort of interpersonal experience.
Interesting. To the Express, page 2, taxes. Now, normally we don't like taxes, but when you look at the plastic bag tax, 5p for a plastic bag, and it's cut the use by 80%, this in the budget next week.
So this is takeaway prices to rise in a plan to tax the plastic packaging. What I'm achingly bored of in this debate about plastic is that the cost of this is always handed on to us, the final user. Where are the manufacturers in this? Why isn't the cost being applied to them to force them to start using something other than plastic? This is absolutely ridiculous. When you go to a shop and you buy something, the amount of packaging that is around certain things is utterly grotesque. And yet, it is us that pay the price for it constantly.
Well, no, but
and not the manufacturers.
except that this, if it's anything like the plastic bags, then this isn't actually
about. How are you going to take away
that's
home
what I was
in your
going to
hands?
ask. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It's also,
recycle. Take your own newspaper to
Take
the
your
fish
own
and chip
newspaper.
shop.
They'll presumably start putting it in different containers.
But will they, or they'll just pass the cost on to us? That's the point I'm making. It's fine, it's fair enough to say that we shouldn't have plastic. I couldn't agree more. Ban it. But why is it always the consumer that pays the price and not the manufacturer?
I have to agree. I mean, look, if you look at, I saw David Attenborough was saying this thing about how this, like, he saw like an albatross, like feeding its chicks pieces of plastic as food. That's a kind of dystopian, hellish existence that we're living in right now. It has to be banned. There has to be stuff done about it. But Petrie's absolutely right. Like, every time it's about like normal, everyday working people that have to pay the price of it. How about these big manufacturers? How about the big retailers paying for it? You go to China, they ban plastic bags there. They banned it in China. They didn't.
We don't want anyone to pay for it. We just want it stopping.
Yes, but only if the manufacturers are charged will they stop it. There's nothing in there for them to stop producing plastic, stop using plastic.
But anything you charge a manufacturer is going to get passed on.
This is a misreading.
They will bring
I don't agree with that. I don't agree that everything that's charged, it can be absorbed into, like, rather than giving CEOs massive profits, maybe we'll eat into that. It doesn't always transfer pound for pound costs and prices.
They would then want
to
find
but it
a solution.
Tends to.
They don't want to find a solution if we're paying the price for it all the time.
Let us know what you think. And don't forget you can get involved.
Point.
SkyOceanRescue.com, at Sky Ocean Rescue on Twitter. Hashtag Ocean Rescue. I'll put that one out.
That works.
I'm really drilling it in.
We can edit that. It's fine.
We've got more coming up for you in just a minute. Now, as we look through the papers with Petrie and Ashok, we've got this in the Mail about fussy eaters. Now, what's wrong with being a fussy eater? That's what I want to know.
Well, I mean, the story is this mom who made a different meal every day of the year to stop children being fussy. Look at this. There's sort of, I think it's a ridiculous story. I mean, I think it's, frankly, I don't know how you're able to do a different meal every single day and live your life.
Hats off to her for trying.
Hats off. But I also think...
It's parent shaming.
Yeah, it's parent shaming.
It's like saying, look at me, I make a quinoa and tofu.
That's nuggets. Those sound delicious, I have to say.
I can't imagine kids really going for quinoa-coated tofu.
I would have loved that as a child.
See, my mum stopped us being fussy eaters. This is how she did it. There's the food.
But they're all vegetarian,
eat it or don't
though.
eat it. Go hungry.
Oh, you see,
there are 5 of us.
Exactly.
That's how you stop a fussy eater.
And
I don't understand how making something different every day stops them being fussy.
It makes
Surely
them more
they've got
fussy.
something different. They never know the same thing again.
Imagine if you're a
Absolutely.
child, every day is different, and then you go out in the world, and then you're like, wow, how am I going to eat the same, bread
Porridge every
day?
morning,
Yeah,
yeah.
you just...
I think this creates fussy eaters, and she needs to just get
This
a
creates
job,
monsters.
really.
Does she?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I think that's a bit harsh. I mean, she's doing the best by her kids, good for her, but I don't understand how that works.
Madam, I would quite like to try your wild garlic pesto and cheese. I don't know what cheese.
Who's got time to
The
make
quinoa
that?
coated tofu nuggets sound
This is quite
delectable.
They do sound
elitist,
good.
isn't
Yeah.
it? It's
They're
quite...
quinoa coated.
But then I'm a fussy veggie, so it sounds all great to me. Lovely. Right, go
Move
and
in
cook
with that.
something up and bring it back in an hour. Let's go check on the sports headlines for you. I'd love to be one of those meteor hunters picking up a piece of that. I'd love a piece of a meteor.
Would you be out in that snow the next morning having a little...
It'll be, I tell you what, around that, it'll be about -30 at the minute, so it's
Probably not then.
not an easy job to do. Let's have a look through the papers for you. Last time today with the broadcaster Petrie Hosken and economist and academic Ashok Kumar. Good morning.
How do you know that wasn't Father Christmas? It wasn't
Well,
a very
this is
clear
my
might have
picture.
been.
point. I think it could have
wasn't
been
a
a
very
trial
clear
run.
picture.
It might have been,
Of
but
the-
I'm
of
hoping
the
it was a
sleigh.
meteor, to be honest. I'd love a piece of a meteor.
Who wouldn't hope it was Father Christmas?
Yeah.
It's
You're like,
better.
I want a meteor instead of...
I know.
Actually
well, he's a
confirming
special
Father
one.
This is just sad. We
I'm
need to
a
talk
special
about this.
case.
We need to
We
talk
do
about
need
this.
to talk
Let's
about
talk about,
Father Christmas will be around in plenty of
Okay.
time.
No, just checking.
Please. I'm a good boy. Petrie, let's start with the Times. We're looking at flirting.
This is an extraordinary case that came to the High Court, where 2 single colleagues go out for a dinner, right? So they outside of work, obviously, they go for dinner, and they had quite a sort of, nice chatty dinner. At the end of the dinner, apparently, the guy put his hand on the girl's waist and made it clear that he wanted more than just to be colleagues. Anyway, she said this was, harassment, this was assault. It went to the court, and the judge has said, look, as long as you do that, but this is what you're supposed to do. This is what made me laugh. If you go out for dinner with a colleague, you're supposed to say at the end of the evening, please correct me if I'm wrong, but have I been picking up on some signals that you would like to be more than colleagues? If you get a no, laugh it off. There's no need to feel awkward. And the correct way to answer that is, that's so kind of you, but I'm not in the market for a relationship at the moment, but I really value your friendship. So that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to say, hello, I find you very attractive. Would you go?
Well, you've said that to me before.
And you said yes, so there was no problem. But this is taking, I worry about this, that the fact that there's a High Court judge handing down a guide on flirting, and how you're supposed to flirt with each other.
This man has not been found guilty of harassment.
The judge said, look, this is silly, this is what happened, it wasn't meant in nastiness, but even just to complain about that, I find a bit odd.
I do think we have to be really careful.
I think we have to, the pendulum has gone, we're going to be robots with each other, we're not going to be talk to each other, we're not going to be able to look at each other. I think we're heading into a really dangerous path. I mean, this guy was fine, the judge went, but that's what you're meant to do. That's very kind of you. Thank you very much. However, I'm not in the market for a relationship.
Right. Oh, it is such a grey area.
I mean, there's a kind of obviously you want to prevent things, but you also don't want to micromanage social relations.
Yeah. I mean, you need to prevent harassment, absolutely. But when it's clearly not harassment, I worry. I think it's just such a shame.
Huge numbers of relationships born out of
work.
And, even from power imbalances. Lots of people are saying, well, they were in a position of power. But if my friends' parents' generation, lots of them were pilots married to air hostesses or doctors married to nurses,
married to
went on to
directors.
have long, happy marriages. So
Absolutely.
I think we have to be really careful, as you say, to try and micromanage social relations.
Yeah. But anyway, that's the tip from now on.
Your thoughts, please, on Twitter at SkyStephen, at Sunrise Isabel. Now, look, councils. I thought councils were low on money. They're splurging £1 billion, apparently, Ashok.
Yeah, I think this is a real sort of indictment of the priorities, the shifting priorities of the state. I mean, you have councils at £1 billion spending money on country clubs and a bowling alley. Look, I'm American. I love bowling. It's in my blood. I love bowling. It's in my blood. But I think we should probably prioritize affordable housing, especially when people are desperate for housing in this country. And it's really astonishing to me that that's what's happening. And it's not sort of this one-off thing, a few bad apples, people spending money here. It's across the board. And again, it's about how councils see their role. Is it to do the people's work, or is it some kind of, weird slush fund?
But there is an argument, isn't there, to say that you need to, there needs to be a focus to a degree on things like social cohesion and leisure activities and bowling or cinema.
Yeah, but they're talking about shopping centres here as well. They're taking council money and they're investing in corporate or commercial property. Now, to some degree,
to boost the local economy.
Some degree, that brings in, absolutely. Councils are hamstrung by the fact that they are not getting money from government like they used to. However, they have got to remember that they work for us. We do not work for them. They have got to remember what they are there for and stop playing at being property magnates or whatever it is they're doing and get the job of council done.
If you want to boost the economy, rather than spend money on commercial properties that are going to go outside of that area, you spend money on council housing. Those people who are working, underemployed or unemployed or on benefits or even on minimum wage, etc., rather than spending more money on extortionate private renting, they would have more money in their pockets, spending more money in a shopping mall that's not subsidized by the council, and that would boost the economy much more. So even an economistic argument,
paying the rents
I don't even think we should make an
housing.
economistic argument, but if we are going to...
Okay. Can we finish off on this? We've got 30 seconds left, but this has got my vote this morning. Looking at President Trump and his sort of U-turn and what you can import.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, there's a U-turn on it, but the fact that this has even come up, this is kind of weird. I don't want to take any political line here, but there's something like a bit comically evil about stuff that his administration's doing sometimes, right? You've got his son, goofy son standing there with a tail of an elephant, and they're sort of, the administration pushes back on and now he's reviewing it. And for me, it just sort of, it reeks of a certain kind of politics and priorities that, when the U.S. is dealing with serious crises on multiple fronts, this is what they're focusing on trying to, and what are you going to review? What's Trump going to review? It's an endangered animal that's been systematically hunted for centuries now. It needs to be, I don't know what there is to review, really, frankly.
Well,
but don't forget, Obama brought this in, so Trump loves overturning Obama's stuff.
And also his own Environment Department is actually saying, hang on a minute, we think this is good because it brings in the big, wealthy game hunters who actually boost conservation. It's hard to reconcile.
The EPA is run by people who don't even agree with that climate change is man-made. It's not like it's an independent body that's saying this is good for the economy. These are ideologues that were chosen, handpicked by Trump and his buddies.
Well, look, we shall leave you with this beautiful line, Cecil, dead, to entertain those two people. Which is, honestly, the mind boggles. Okay, we're going to take a break. Back with more for you in just a moment. Okay, let's have a look at the Mirror. And actually, I tweeted about this the other day, about Angel Delight becoming more popular, and my Twitter feed went mad.
Loved Angel Delight as a kid.
Butterscotch.
Did you ever just dip your finger in the powder and eat it?
No, but I never quite wait for it to set.
No, of course not. So we've seen a rise in Angel Delight. So this is just putting together some other popular foods that are resurrected, and they're mostly 70s, aren't they? SodaStream, we had a SodaStream as kids.
Did you?
Yeah,
we
well.
didn't. We couldn't afford a SodaStream. No, I'm serious.
No, we had a SodaStream. And then you've got I don't think the prawn cocktails ever really gone out, has it?
What? Oh, what, the food? Yes,
has
it's a proper
it?
70s dinner
It was-
party
it
dish.
was-
I mean, if someone served me that at a dinner
I walk
party, I
out.
would like...
I walk out. I spit in it and then I walk out.
Yeah, me too. I never return.
Yeah, then I cuss them
What
and
about
leave.
baked
yeah.
Alaska?
Baked
Had
Alaska.
that at school.
What spam? Really?
School.
We really need to
Yeah,
return
is
of
spam coming back? I don't. The fondue,
crazy.
I think I love a fondue.
Yeah, that never went out.
Yeah,
Isn't fondue more just a kind of like a gimmicky thing than the actual
just a
food?
social
Yeah,
way of eating, isn't it?
Chicken
and I don't
Kiev,
think the
that's
pork
never
pie's
gone
ever gone
out.
out.
We're just talking about food and how much we love it.
Yeah, we really are.
Super
So you don't
noodles.
recognise any of these?
No, obviously
kitchen foods?
spam is an American classic.
Yeah.
So I recognize
But
it.
that's
I know
it.
it
The only
Angel
thing I want
Delight,
out of
not so
this,
much.
I don't know.
Black Forest Gatto. I love
looks
Black
so
Forest
Properly
Gatto.
made,
No,
it
no,
is
no.
stunning.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely lovely. So good. Some of these coming back great. Some of them not so. Pot noodle never went away. Ask
no.
a student.
Oh, yeah. We've no time to talk about this, about why dogs shouldn't lick your face, but I am intrigued. It's on BuzzFeed. Is that Patrick Stewart?
Yeah, maybe.
Why shouldn't they lick
Is
your
that
face?
Patrick
They shouldn't
Stewart
lick
licking your
sticks.
face?
Dogs let
It
you
is.
live longer, but if you let them lick your face, you die very young.
I'm not surprised.
Don't. My dog
Disgusting.
licks my face.
No, they wallow and lick and live in filth. Of course, they shouldn't do
They
that.
don't live in film.
And they sniff filth.
No, it's
bad.
fine.
I love dogs,
It's
but
fine.
don't lick it.
Yeah.
Right, on that note, we need
Don't
to
lick
go.
the dog.
We
Don't
need to
lick the
go.
dog. Don't lick the dog.
Don't lick your dog.
I
Don't
never
lick the
lick
dog.
my dog.
Sports headlines.
Don't lick it.